To me, being a gangster was better than being president of the United States.
Say, kids, what time is it?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mr. Pitiful Podcast. I'm your boss podcaster, Mr. Pitiful.
This guy's been stoned since the third grade.
Coming at you live and direct from a Buc-ee's bathroom in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Welcome. If you are new to the Mr. Pitiful Podcast, basically what I do here is I tell true stories about my life growing up in Hollywood and all of that. So let's get to it. So Metallica was probably my favorite band from something like 7th grade to about my sophomore year in high school. I was absolutely obsessed with these guys. And what had happened was one of my schoolmates that I rode the bus with in the morning gave me his Walkman, and he had the Master of Puppets tape in there. I said, bro, you got to hear this band. And I put those headphones on and hit play, and I was instantly hooked. Just completely blown away. Never heard anything like that before. And I want to say about a month later, my same buddy brought me the song One from the And Justice for All album. And when I heard that, I was just stunned. I mean, I got off the school bus and my head was just like ringing, like, what did I just hear? So suffice it to say, I became fairly obsessed with this band. I would say by the time I started wearing band t-shirts at school every day, I'd say on a 5-day week, I probably wore a different Metallica shirt like 3 out of 5 days. I was just absolutely obsessed with these guys. And eventually I got into the kind of hippie, kind of Deadhead, Grateful Dead kind of side of things. But I still listened to some metal for a while. But if you would have told me that I was going to not only meet Metallica one day, but like work with them, I never would have believed you in a million years. So I want to be abundantly clear, by the way. I did not ever engineer or produce for Metallica. I was a production assistant in the studio, which meant I was getting coffee, getting food, mopping restrooms, stuff like that. So I'm in the studio working for a while, and then one day I see Metallica's name on the work order, and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, cool, finally get to freaking meet Metallica. Now, the way it worked in this role in the studio is you worked the morning shift for 6 weeks, and then you switched over to the night shift, and you worked that for 6 weeks. And both shifts were pretty rough, but night shift was particularly rough. And I was really excited driving in that night because I was on the night shift, and I was driving in and I'm like, cool, Metallica's going to be there. Like, can't freaking wait. We park in the back parking lot, and there's like a rear entrance where we let ourselves in. And what I didn't expect is when I opened the door, it was absolute chaos. Yeah, the studio's a little busy. Yeah, it can be crazy sometimes, but I've never seen it like this before. There were people running around everywhere like chickens with their heads cut off. It reminded me of like when you step on an anthill and all the ants are going crazy. This is exactly what it was like. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell is going on? Like, why is there all this chaos in the studio all of a sudden? And it turned out it was all because of Metallica. So I come walking in and, to get briefed by the day crew on what's going on. And it turns out Metallica's recording in Studio B. They've brought a film crew along with them to document what they are doing. And the air conditioning in that particular studio is broken, which is really, really bad. It's bad for a number of reasons. One is the equipment, and we have a lot of it, generates a ton of heat. And it's older equipment, it's sensitive, it needs to remain, somewhat cool. So already the room's getting heated up from just the sheer amount of equipment we have. The room is additionally being heated up by the sheer amount of bodies in there because we've got the band, we've got the producer, we got the engineer, we've got the camera crew, we've got all their lights, and all of this kind of a thing. So it's like 1,000 fucking degrees in this studio. And what they had decided to do, because there was no air conditioning, but the show must go on, they're paying like $2,000 a day to be in there, is they had the morning crew go out to like Toys R Us and buy some big like plastic kiddie pools, right? And then they had them somewhere, I don't know where they bought these things, but they had them buy these big like 5-10 pound blocks of ice, like solid blocks of ice, and some box fans. And basically what they would do is they put the blocks of ice in the kiddie pools, put a box fan in front of it to kind of blow the cool air into the studio, and then when the ice block melted, it would melt into the pool so it wouldn't make a mess on the floor. And they were doing overdubs with Kirk Hammett. So Kirk's in the control room. He's got his little pedal board out there, which was probably a wah-wah, haha. And we'd like turn off the fans, hit record, wow, Kirk would start playing, and the second they hit stop, turn all the fans back on. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's just freaking chaos. And I don't even remember seeing anybody around apart from Bob Rock and Kirk Hammett. Incidentally, James Hetfield had been in rehab at the time for his issues with alcohol, so I never ever got to meet him or see him. Jason Newsted had quit the band at this point, and my understanding was Bob Rock was playing bass on that stuff. So basically, out of all the members of Metallica, I ever got to meet, Lars and Kirk. And this podcast is really about meeting Lars. Just a brief sidebar about Kirk is I barely really got to know him because he's a very shy guy. That's at least the impression I got of him. He seems like kind of a loner. He seems like kind of an introvert. He seems kind of like a reluctant rock star. So I never really built much rapport with Kirk or really got to know him. Now, initially, Metallica came in just to do, I don't even know what they were working on. I didn't recognize any of it, but they were basically doing some guitar overdubs with Kirk Hammett and filming the whole thing. But as things died down, Metallica was still booked with us, and they were working on, I think, a couple projects. One of them, incidentally, was a soundtrack song for, I don't know, Fast and Furious or something. But it was a collaboration with Ja Rule, which I thought was just crazy. So as time goes on, things settle down a bit. We're working in the studio, and I started getting to know Lars a little bit because I was kind of seeing him quite a bit. And I think all of his drum parts had already been recorded, so he was mostly just kind of hanging out and killing time. Now, the point of this episode is, what is Lars Ulrich like in person? And this is just my personal take. This is just my experience, but I kind of had my guard up a little bit when I first met him because he comes across kind of bad in some of his interviews and things. For those of you who may not be old enough to remember, they were on the news quite a bit for things like Ticketron or Ticketmaster, I believe. Music pirating with the whole MP3 thing and like LimeWire. So they came across, at least Lars did, pretty badly in some of his press interviews, or at least the media painted him in kind of a bad light. And I always thought it was kind of funny, the South Park episode where they were making fun of Lars for being sad because his gold-plated Shark Tank bar was on back order and he'd have to wait 2 more weeks to get it or something because people were downloading music illegally, So I kind of had my guard up. I thought he was going to be kind of a jerk. And my experience in general with like rock stars and actors and all of that is as follows. Generally, my experience has been the successful people are completely fine, but the one-hit wonders and the wannabes are the freaking jerks. So I start meeting Lars and talking to him and hanging out with him, and he turns out to be a super sweet, totally warm, totally cool, down-to-earth guy, at least in a way. I can tell it's been a while since he's been a regular person because some of the things he talks about is hard to relate to. But apart from that, he was a super cool guy, and I really enjoyed talking with him and hanging out with him. I remember one of the stories he told me, which was like impossible to relate to. It was something like he bought a small mountain or a small island in like the San Francisco Bay, and he would just like ride his jet ski out to it just to like hang out. So, and I didn't get the impression he was bragging or flexing. He was just, that's his life, and he was talking about his life. So over the weeks, I'd see him here and there, and he would remember me and kind of be like, oh, hey, what's up? Blah, 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 blah. And, I just found him to be just a super cool hang. One night it was kind of interesting because I don't even think Metallica was in-house with us. And it was about 2 a.m. and I was mopping the woman's restroom, because that's part of our job. And I'm like sitting there doing my thing, and I look up, and here comes Lars walking down the hall. And he recognizes me immediately, says, oh, hey, bro, like, what's going on? How are you? Like, how's things been? So we were kind of catching up, and all of a sudden he starts looking at me and taking in what I'm doing. And he says to me, oh, hey, they make you mop the woman's restroom? And I was like, yeah, part of the job, part of paying your dues. And he's like, man, that sucks. And at that moment, my little inner voice was screaming at me to like ask him for work, hey, put me to work. But I didn't do that for 2 reasons. One was, I think it was my own crippling self-doubt. It's kind of something like, if he liked me and wanted to work with me, he would ask me. I wouldn't have to ask him. That was kind of part of it. The other bigger part that was sort of looming over me was the studio had gotten paranoid while I was working there. they thought either I was like some kind of corporate spy or I was there to poach clients from them. Because when I went to work there, I acted like I didn't know how to engineer or produce or anything. Because in my mind, I didn't. I was there to learn. And I wasn't trying to be humble. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. I'm literally there to learn from the best. So I'm keeping my mouth shut. But what had happened was it turns out that a couple clients knew me, which freaked them out. And then one of the records I had worked on started getting noticed by some of the labels and some of the producers. And when the word got out that I was the dude behind that record, the narrative became something like, oh, he's here to poach clients. So it came across kind of bad when I was chummy with the clients. I thought it was a good thing that I was chummy with the clients and that the clients seemed to like me and take a shine to me. What I didn't realize is being chummy with the clients was alienating my coworkers who were not chummy with the clients. But also I was feeding that kind of rumor mill that like, oh, he's here to poach clients and look at him hanging out and being chummy with these people. So the last thing I wanted to do was ask him for work or hit him up for work and have anybody find out. And then that would confirm their little confirmation bias. Like, see, he is here to poach clients, you know? So Lars, if you're listening, buddy, I love you, man. If there's still room at Metallica headquarters, hit me up because I'd love to come work for you guys. But I was a younger kid and I didn't really have the best social skills. And like looking back, I probably should have made a joke out of it. So like if Lars says, hey, like, oh gosh, they make you mop the women's restrooms. You know what I probably should have said? Yeah, bro, if there's a restroom over at Metallica headquarters, I'd be happy to go mop that or, you know, something like that. And who knows, that maybe could have changed my life completely. But basically after Lars asked me like, oh man, they make you mop the women's restroom and that sucks, he just kind of like walked away. And that was probably a huge opportunity right there that walked away from me because I'm pretty confident if I would have hit him up, he would have hired me for something. So lesson learned. But anyway, yeah, so for those of you who think Lars Ulrich is a jerk, and I don't know, you know, if I'd necessarily want to be in a band with the dude, you know, the bands are a tough thing because it's like a marriage, you know, and for Metallica, it's been, gosh, how long have they been around? You know, 40, 50 years. It's like a 50-year marriage at least. It's a 50-year marriage with money, you know, but they've had their trials and tribulations and, you know, it's, bands are tough, delicate things. So, you know, it's a lot of stress. I'm in a little, like, I wouldn't say garage band. We're a little bigger than that, but I'm in a band myself and it's a little stressful for me and we don't deal with nearly the amount of stuff they deal with. So I can only imagine the pressure cooker that it is to be in like the world's largest rock band. So if he gets a little snippy here and there or gets a little bit of an attitude, I wouldn't blame him at all. So in closing, I just want to say like Lars, he's a super cool guy. Don't believe the hype. He's really friendly. He's really down to earth for being one of the biggest drummers in the world. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you like my podcast and you want to hear more, you know, behind the scenes Hollywood stories, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back soon with another podcast about my crazy life. Peace out.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey through sound.